Hello there. This is Being God's Obedient Servant channel. Today's lesson, we're in Esther. Going to be doing chapters 3 and 4. And if you remember from last time, left off, Esther was first chosen. She was a young virgin, and she was in the running for becoming the next queen, because the original queen disrespected and disobeyed the king, her husband, and so she was being replaced. And Esther was chosen to be the new queen. So that part's already been established. And like I said before, that Esther's part was to save the Jews in the area. And so tonight's lesson area, we're going to be finding out what happened to cause, the Jews to be in danger in the area. So what we learn from about the Bible, everywhere that God's people have been, they've always been treated horribly. Same thing starting to happen here in America. That in certain ran cities, there's a lot of unrest now, people wanting to hate God's people. Christians always end up on the same chopping block because, Satan just really dislikes God and Jesus and anybody that supports them. Now, a lot of problems come upon Christians and Jewish people because of who they do decide to follow. I guess Satan thinks that if he can cause enough problems in people's lives, that will discourage them from following God and Jesus. And I will say it's effective sometimes. I've caught myself questioning, why should I keep following Jesus and everything else? Because I've had some hard times come in my life, but I didn't quit. But it's not a sin to question things. And God knows we're going to have doubts from time to time. And it's to be expected. It's even in the Bible. One of the 12 disciples denied Jesus, 3 times before the cock crew. And he hated himself. He didn't think himself worthy, even when he heard that Jesus had returned, that he was resurrected. He didn't think he was worthy. He said that's a good thing. But did not, I can't remember which disciple came to him to tell him this and ask him if he was coming. And he said, he wasn't planning on seeing Jesus because he denied him. He didn't think he was worthy. And Jesus had to affirm him. He said, because I knew you was going to deny me, but you were still one of mine, one of my disciples. So Jesus had to go to him. That's how much Jesus loves us, even though we have problems at times and we start to run into doubt. He will still come to us. He's not this, dictatorship type ruler, like obey me and bow to me, or I will blah, 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 beat you or something. That's not how Jesus and God does things. I mean, we do have to obey his commandments and statutes. We're to strive to be perfect, even though we know we're not. We're to be Christ-like, is the whole thing of the word of being a Christian. But he knows we're not going to be, and is not expected for us to be, but we are to try. But anyways, so even in these times, we're still before Jesus. The Jews have been attacked multiple times. It says this still at the same time when Nebuchadnezzar came to the land and, took over, because Even though the Jews are God's chosen people, he still brings them under punishment for being disobedient. Even us as Christians, we fall into that. For being disobedient, we are, to expect a little bit of a butt spanking for not doing the right thing all the time. But, like I say, like if it's an accident type stuff, we're instantly forgiven that. It's whenever our lifestyles change and we start bringing sin into our life on a more routine basis, especially when we know it's wrong and we do it anyways. We still can get into heaven, but we will increase our sorrows and problems here on earth. But either or on that, we're going to head and jump right on in here. Like I said, today's lesson, we're finding out, what caused this in this particular area and stuff, the reason why that the Jews will be in danger in King Ahasuerus' area. I can't remember the name of the palace. What is it? Either or. They're going to say it again in here. But yeah, the King Ahasuerus, it mostly gives the name of his palace more. I said I'm horrible at memorizing certain things. And weird names is one of them. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started on in here. So, Esther chapter 3, verse 1. Now, if you also recall, Mordecai is the one that warned the king that two people were planning a rebellion against him and is going to plan on harming the king. Mordecai is the cousin / adopted father of Esther. And so it was found out that the king's life was in danger, that the rebellion was going to be started by these two guys, and they were found out to be true. And the king had them hanged had them executed for their treason. So let's get started here. Chapter 3, verse 1. After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him and set his seat above all the princes that were with him. And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman. For the king had so commanded concerning him, but Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence. Now, for us to take this part here, why didn't Mordecai bow to him? In a sense, it was probably more in reference to bowing as in worshiping. It's, honestly, I don't know why he wouldn't. But here's the problem with people that get in positions of power. They desire power and desire to be treated better than everyone else and think that they are worthy of such just because they are there. And this is a very sinful trait. It falls under greedy, selfishness, vanity, all the things in between. But it's like, Daniel, Meshach, Eshach, and Abednego area under King Nebuchadnezzar area, they were told to worship a statue of the king, and they chose not to, but to follow, to only worship God. So, more than likely for Mordecai not to bow would also mean, because it's like he's probably saying, you need to bow and worship me, because that's how rulers were back then, and even today. We have plenty of politicians, even here in America, that desire to be worshipped. Actors and actresses and musicians, they desire to be worshipped. You know. And of course, it's a sin to worship a false god, a false idol. That, is part of the Ten Commandments. You shall have no other gods before me. It's part of the Ten Commandments. So I'm estimating that's more or less the reason why he wouldn't bow to this Haman character. But this is what sparks the whole problem, is because Mordecai refuses to do this, and it makes an enemy of all the Jews to this one guy, and so he's going to come up with something to, it's a little deceitful what he does. We find out later on what he's doing. He's going to get the king's approval to punish certain people doing certain things, but doesn't give them the in-depths, because Haman knows that Mordecai is, I can't remember if they already know this now, but Mordecai is the one that, that he was to be known that he was the one that saved the king. And I don't know if they know yet that Mordecai is the cousin or adopted father of Esther, which is now the queen. That's right. No, that gets being let known later, because she's still hiding the fact that she is a Jew from the king. She's never told him this. But anyways, but it's Esther's position. God's using her in this position and stuff to save his people, and to show how the saying goes, the Lord works in mysterious ways. This is one of them. So anyways, continue on. Verse 3. Then the king's servants which were in the king's gate said unto Mordecai, Why transgressest thou the king's commandment? Now it came to pass, when they spake daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's matters would stand, for he had told them that he was a Jew. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath. And he thought scorn And he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had showed him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai. In the first month, that is the month Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast pur, that is the lot, before Haman from day to day and from month to month, to the 12th month, that is the month Adar. And Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, There is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people, neither keep they the king's laws, therefore it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. So of course here he's manipulating the king. So here's like one says that their laws are diverse from, king's laws, because the king never said that the people were to worship this Haman. He did put him over these other people and everything else, but the Jews are ordered to only serve one God, not to worship others. That's why I still feel that he was told that he had to worship, bow down and worship me, and the reason why he wouldn't do it. Because the Jews never had a problem bowing down and paying homage to a ruler. But when it comes to worshiping, it's a different story. But of course, you can see here that he is, because the king never said that it is a law to do this thing. But since he says he wants it done, and since, he says he speaks for the king, he's made it a law without the king's knowing. Or made it a rule. He wanted everybody to do this. Anyways, verse 9. If it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have the charge of the business to bring it into the king's treasuries. And the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agite, the Jews' enemy. So, of course, we know this from other things you've watched over the years or any movies and stuff. This is like even from Game of Thrones, this is the hand of the king. He's got the special ring or the special the little thing he wears on his chest saying who he is. That, same thing. So with him having the king's ring, he speaks for the king now. But of course, he's deceiving the king with what he's doing. But I've already said this multiple times. Let's continue on reading. We should be able to read through the whole rest of this. Pretty self-explanatory, but it's also a very good story. I like the story of Esther. Verse 11. And the king said unto Haman, the silver is given to thee, the people also to do with them as it seemeth good to thee. So also the other part is, not only is he deceiving the king, he planned, he's also going to take money from the king to do this thing, to pay people to harm the Jews. But, of course, more than likely, he's going to get some of that money back for himself. So this is where the greed stuff comes in. But anyways, verse 12. Then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month, and there was written according to all that Haman had commanded unto the king's lieutenants, and to the governors that were over every province, and to the rulers of every people of every province, according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, in the name of King Ahasuerus was it written, and sealed with the king's ring. And the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces, to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. This other deceiving thing is going to kill them and also take their property. But he wanted to have this all done in one day before the king knew what was going to happen. This is how he was. He knew he was deceiving the king, and he didn't want the king to react. Didn't want the king to have time. By the time it got word back to the king what was happening, it had already been done with. That was the plan. Anyways, 14. The copy of the writing for the commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, that they should be ready against that day. The post went out, being hastened by the king's commandment, and the decree was given in Shushan the palace. There it is, Shushan, that's the name of the palace. And the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city Shushan was perplexed. Chapter 4. Then Mordecai perceived all that was done, and Mordecai rent his clothes, and put on sackcloth with ashes, and went out into the midst of the city, and cried with a loud and bitter cry, and came even before the king's gate, for none might enter into the king's gate clothed with sackcloth. And in every province whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, there was great mourning among the Jews, and fasting, and weeping, and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. Now, of course, remember from the other parts of the law, being in sackcloth and covered in ashes was part of the order of mourning. It was actually part of their law that they had to do it that way for mourning. Verse 4. So Esther's maids and her chamberlains came and told it her. Then was the queen exceedingly grieved, and she sent raiment to clothe Mordecai, and to take away his sackcloth from him, but he received it not. Then called Esther for Hatach, one of the king's chamberlains, whom he had appointed to attend upon her, and gave him a commandment to Mordecai to know what it was and why it was. So Hatach went forth to Mordecai unto the street of the city, which was before the king's gate. And Mordecai told him of all that had happened unto him, and of the sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay to the king's treasuries for the Jews to destroy them. Treasuries for the Jews to destroy them. Also he gave him the copy of the writing of the decree that was given at Shushan to destroy them, to show it unto Esther, and to declare it unto her, and to charge her that she should go in unto the king to make supplication unto him, and to make request before him for her people. And Hatach came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. Again Esther spake unto Hatach, and gave him commandment unto Mordecai. All the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces do know that whosoever, whether man or woman, shall come unto the king into the inner court, who is not called, there is one law of his to put him to death, except such to whom the king shall hold out the golden scepter, that he may live. But I have not been called to come in unto the king these 30 days. And they told to Mordecai Esther's words. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, Think not with thyself that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all the Jews. For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place, but thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed. And who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Then Esther bade them return Mordecai this answer. Go gather together all the Jews that are present in Shushan, and fast ye for me, and neither eat nor drink 3 days, night or day. I also and my maidens will fast likewise, and so will I go in unto the king, which is not according to the law, and if I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went his way and did according to all that Esther had commanded him. And of course, that's the end of this lesson. Now we have to think about this. She is the queen, but you got to remember, she's a young virgin. So that means she's still probably not even 18 years old. She's probably around maybe 17 years old. And she's being asked to choose to do something that could cause her to be sentenced to death. And that's when someone's young, that's a hard pill to swallow. And the older you get and stuff like that, it's like, I done lived a long life, this, that, and the other. If it happens, it happens. I'm ready to meet the Lord or whatever, if you're in that situation type stuff. But yeah, so yeah, she's left with a challenge on this, and of course, the fasting part is to pray. That's part of the prayer system, prayer and everything else for the fasting. It's also part of their mourning and everything else, because whatever is happening, which they've already said, that's also the part of sackcloth and ashes. But like I said, that's the end of that lesson. So it looks like this time I want to keep the lesson right at it's around 30 minutes, close to it. And I was actually expecting the reading to go by a little bit faster, but like I said before, there's always lessons you get from every part of the Bible you read. There's always something you can learn. But I hope you're enjoying this with Esther, this lesson. One of my dogs is here beside me. You probably hear him pan a couple of times. He's wanting attention from me. So it's like my attention's being bounced around right now. But yeah, as I said, this is a short lesson. I'm not going to keep trying to read, and I still want to get these lessons down to probably about 30, 45 minutes and keep them there. So once again, let's remember to pray. Pray for each other. Pray for me. I got some prayer requests of my own, stuff I'm dealing with in my life I need help with. I'll pray for everyone else out there too. If you like this and you're not subscribed, I would like, you don't have to, but I do like to know about how many people's listening and stuff. But if I will, you can share. But I will recommend, like, if you're new to this and you haven't watched the videos from Genesis on up, I do recommend going to, my channel. Go to the first videos, Genesis chapter 1, from there, and watch all those videos to get caught up to this. It makes more sense. But yeah, so anyways, I said also, remember to pray for our country and other countries. Israel's going through some stuff with all that with Hamas and everything. They're going to need prayers. Got to pray for the rest of the world too, because we still got the stuff between Ukraine and Russia going on. We have unrest happening all across Europe and other areas. Got Iran trying to get in the mix of this stuff too. It's a lot of stuff's going on right now, and to keep the peace or anything else, got to pray. Well, we got to pray for peace, but more than likely it's not gonna happen. Yeah, he's a good boy. But yeah, anyway, as I said, I'm going to go ahead and end this lesson here. Normally I pause everything while I pet the doggy here, but I said I'm just about finishing the video up at the same time, so I'm going to go ahead and just do it all at one time. But yeah, I got a dog here. He's a good boy. But yeah, anyways, until next time, God bless, good night, and goodbye.